I was forced to resign, to step down after over 16 years of fronting the Newsboys. Can I be honest tonight? My world fell apart. I felt raped. I felt abandoned. I felt lost. My sense of identity was gone. My sense of hope. My sense of validation. Because as long as I was on this stage, I felt like I was somebody. But now my career, my ministry's been taken. My world fell apart. Unfortunately, my marriage went from worse to worse. My wife eventually left me. My marriage is over. My career is over. To deal with the guilt and shame of losing everything, I remember I started drinking heavily. Before long, I remember there was barely a day that went by that I wasn't intoxicated. Eventually, the alcohol never numbed the shame and the guilt enough. I remember I had a cocaine, a drug habit, and God only knows how much money I was spending a day on cocaine. Secretly, I'm suffering from severe depression. Secretly, I'm contemplating suicide. One day, I'd had enough. I couldn't live with the guilt and the shame any longer. And so I went to this guy who I knew, who I used to purchase cocaine from. He had a gun collection. I said, "Hey mate, can I borrow one of those handguns off you?" He's like, "Sure dude, just bring it back on Monday." Alright. I went home that day with the intention of ending my life. Nothing more to live for. I've lost everything, my marriage, my daughter, my career, my ministry. I'm a mess. I felt so guilty, so much shame. God had given me everything. He believed in me. He changed my world, and this is how I repay Him. I remember sitting in my house in Franklin, Tennessee, alone. The kingdom of John James is collapsing around my ears. I'm sitting there, there's alcohol bottles, there's cocaine lines on my marble coffee table. I'm drunk, I'm high. I'm weeping, and I'm sitting there with a loaded gun on my leg. And as I'm sitting there, I'm hearing this voice say in my head, "You are such a loser. You're a failure. Come on, at least end your life right. At least have the guts now to pick up that gun, press it against your head and pull the trigger." And I remember, friends, as I raised that hunk of cold, lifeless steel and pressed it against my head. And as I closed my eyes, I remember hearing this voice say to me, "You failed your wife, you failed your daughter, you failed God, you failed everyone. Pull the trigger now." And with tears running down my face, I remember I pushed it hard against my temple. I closed my eyes and I took in one last breath. And before I pulled the trigger, this is what I intended to say. And this is what I said. "Please, God, help me." Instantly, the phone rings. The answering machine kicks on. It's my wife calling from Australia. I'm not moving. I'm not budging. I'm ready to pull that trigger. And she's on the phone crying. She's like, "John, I know you're there. Please, I beg you, pick up the phone. John, I know you can hear my voice. John, I know you're listening. Please, pick up the phone," like she can see me. In the end, she's so persistent. I crack. I'm like, "Ah!" I throw the gun down and I yell at the phone and I'm like, "My God, woman, leave me alone. You're on the other side of the world and you can still reach out and nag me. Just let me kill myself in peace." I picked the phone up. I'm like, "What do you want?" Over the next several moments, somehow she was able to reach on the inside of me, into my soul, my heart. She was able to talk me somehow into getting on a plane. I remember when she said, "Come home, leave it all, just come back to Australia. Come back to your daughter, come back to me, your family, come back to Australia." I said, "Forget it, there's nothing for me back there. And even if I wanted to go back, it's almost Christmas, it's the busy season. I'll never get a ticket." She said, "I've booked you a ticket, it leaves in 2 days." Women are so smart. So smart. I wish I could stand here tonight and say, "I was a great man." To be honest, friends, I've got to be honest, I don't even remember getting on the plane. I was so miracle they let me on the plane. It's a miracle I got on the right plane. That was 10 years ago. You have no idea how much of a miracle it is for me to be standing on this stage 10 years later, back with my mates, back with the Newsboys. In my wildest dreams, I never ever thought I'd be here. I sometimes meet people and they say to me, "Oh, wow, John James, you had that incredible career, you had all of that. Oh, now you've lost it all." I look at them and I know they mean well, but I can't help but smiling and containing myself, because on the inside, I just want to shout and say, "You're kidding, right?" It was strike three, game over. I had a gun pressed against my head, ready to blow my brains out. And here I am alive today. I'm no longer an alcoholic. I'm no longer a drug addict. I'm no longer suicidal. I have my wife back. My marriage was restored. I have my children back. See, you got to realise something. I'm the luckiest man on the face of the planet, because I've not only met the God of the first chance when I was 15, but 10 years ago I experienced the God of the second chance. And when you experience the God of the second chance and you're touched by that sort of grace, you can't help but be the same again. It changes you. Friends, tonight in closing, listen to me. I'm not asking you to join some club, join my fan mail, join me on Facebook. I don't really give a rip about any of that, to be honest. But I'm asking you tonight to have the guts, to have the courage, because the big question tonight, the big question isn't, is God real? The big question tonight is, do you have the courage to take a step and open up your heart and mind to the possibility of God? See, God tonight has done all He can do for you. But He's given you a free will. You will not ignore Him tonight. You will either receive Him or you will reject Him. But personally, I personally believe Christianity, the faith I have, can't only be sung about, it can't only be spoken about, but God has to be experienced. You have to experience His God. You have to experience His love, His power, His forgiveness, His strength, His hope. The question is tonight, do you have the courage? Do you have the courage to reach out? God, if you're real, show me. God is not intimidated like that. He welcomes that sort of invitation. God, if you're real, show me tonight. Let me experience you. You might be saying, "John, you don't know what I've done." No, but I know what I've done. And yet here I stand, given a second chance in life, a second chance to live, to tell people the good news. Not only for the first time, but the God of the second chance is also here for you tonight. I want everyone now just to bow their heads for a second. Can I have some house lights?